There's a new day dawning, the time is at hand, where the glory of the Lord will be revealed to every man. Open the door, open the door, open the door, and let the King of Glory in. Open the door, open the door, open the door, and let the King of Glory in.
All right, open up the door. Starts right now, so fling wide you heavenly gates. Prepare the way of the risen Lord. The Apostle John was on the island of Patmos. He was in prison for the testimony of Jesus Christ, and he heard a sound behind him. He said, I looked, and there was a door standing open in heaven, and I heard a voice which was like a trumpet speaking with me, saying, come up here, and I will show you the things which must take place. That's what we need, my friends. We need a heavenly perspective of the things that are going on in the world around us, the things that the Word of God foretold us would come to pass, those things which must take place, those things which are taking place even now as I speak. That is what this broadcast is all about, discussing the issues of the day, discerning the times in which we live from a biblical perspective and worldview. Good afternoon, everybody. Andy White here, and what you are about to hear is the fusion of heart, mind, and soul. And thanks for tuning in to a brand new live edition of Open Up the Doors. And I want to greet everybody all across the fruited plain, all around the spherical globe. Hey, I am streaming live on Facebook Live. If you are able to catch the broadcast on Facebook Live, you can go on over to my Open Up the Doors Facebook page at facebook.com slash FaithFM 91.7. That's facebook.com slash FaithFM 91.7. And join in the conversation over there. And for those of you on Facebook Live, please share this into your stream and get the word out for Open Up the Doors. And please invite people. If you've never liked the Open Up the Doors Facebook page, please like the page as well. We are streaming over the internet, of course, at hamptonschristian.com. That's hamptonschristian.com. If you are outside of the FM broadcast area, you can just, there's a link there for Faith FM, and you can just, stream it there on your laptop, on your desktop. And also with there, we have links for the free Faith FM app as well. Great way to listen to Faith FM 24/7 is to get the app. But I want to jump right on the broadcast because there's a whole lot of stuff going on. As I'm sure most of you are well aware, the Iranians shot down an American drone last night in the Strait of Hormuz in international airspace. Now, Putin is warning Trump not to retaliate with military force. And intelligence assessments suggest that Tehran might initiate a provocation along one of Israel's borders in order to exacerbate the crisis using one of the groups it operates in the area. It's just another wonderful day in that neighborhood, folks. So buckle up. There's a whole lot to talk about, and the prophetic time clock is ticking down. You know, there are a lot of prophetically interesting things going on that I think few people are really noticing, but I do believe are quite significant. Did you know, for instance, now this is a little bit of an aside, but I want to use it to kind of as a diving board into what I want to get into, but did you know that, because I do think there's some interesting symbolism going on to this strange phenomenon, but did you know that the magnetic North Pole is not where it used to be? Since 2015, as a matter of fact, the place to which a compass points, known as magnetic North Pole, has been sprinting towards Siberia at a pace of more than 30 miles a year. In fact, the magnetic North Pole has been shifting so fast the last couple of years and has moved so much that they needed to reset the GPS calibrations earlier this year. That's kind of old news, but again, it's happening. It's kind of interesting. It's an interesting phenomenon. And I do believe there's got to be just prophetic significance and implications of this. You can't help it. When you understand that what creates the magnetic field around the Earth is dependent on what, in fact, it's created by the core of the Earth. The molten iron core in the center of the Earth is what creates the magnetic field. And I do believe this has possibly a lot of prophetic implications with the North Pole shifting and moving. I do think it's going to play into some part of the last days and environmental calamities that we read about in the apocalyptic portions of the scriptures. I mean, the reason the magnetic pole is shifting and moving is because of whatever is going on in the core of the Earth. It's that core that creates that magnetic field around the Earth, and that core activity is most likely, I think, what is also causing the increase in both earthquake and volcanic activity. But not only, and again, I do think there's a lot of interesting corollaries there, but not only is there a geomagnetic polar shift occurring, there is a geopolitical polar shift that is occurring. Not only is there a geomagnetic storm brewing, my friends, but there is a huge geopolitical storm brewing. And that is actually what I do want to talk about. Again, I do think that there's something there that's just interesting in the symbolism with the North Pole, magnetic North Pole shifting. There's a lot of shifting going on. There's a lot of pole shifting going on. Over the last couple of weeks, this is something that really, I think, has flown out under the radar in a lot of ways. But over the last couple of weeks, there was, in fact, it was last week, really, there were a couple of gatherings in Russia and China and in Asia that, again, they just flew under the radar of most Americans, and without a doubt, the American media never really covers this. I find this stuff out by looking at the foreign papers and looking at the media from overseas. Because after all, with Americans and American media, that's just, those are just economic and organizational summits for those other nations on the other side of the planet that, we just so American-centric. We just don't think anything else that goes on the planet is of any importance because, hey, we're America. I digress, and I'm probably sounding a little cynical at the moment. But for me, these summits and meetings that are going on, my friends, they are oozing. They are really oozing with eschatological and prophetic implications. In previous broadcasts through the years, I've spoken to you about some of these organizations and how I do believe they are forming and shaping the last days. What I'm going to use the phraseology that they are using, the new multipolar world order, because this is what's taking place. But about 2 years ago, I shared with you in a broadcast on the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, which is the second largest body in the world outside of the UN. And I don't want to spend the time reviewing all of that. I have a video on my YouTube channel called the OIC and Psalm 83. Look it up on my YouTube channel. Get yourself up to speed with that. But there's the OIC, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, and I do believe they're going to be the gel that brings the Magog Confederacy together. Again, go listen to that broadcast, the OIC and Psalm 83 on YouTube. But a few months back, I talked about the Shanghai Cooperative Organization, the SCO, and the SCO is this Eurasian Political, Economic, and Security Alliance, which was created back in 2001 in Shanghai, which is why it's called the Shanghai Cooperative Organization. But the original 5 members were China and Russia and Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan and Uzbekistan. Since that time, other nations have joined, India and Pakistan. So the SCO has grown significantly since its inauguration in 2001. Again, I did a broadcast called The Kings of the East. Again, I can't get into, I just don't have the time to cover everything that I've discussed in the past. Go on over to my YouTube channel. Look up the Kings of the East broadcast. Look up the OIC broadcast, because there was two meetings this past week that incorporated both these groups. And the SCO, the Shanghai Cooperative Organization, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, they met And they met with an overlapping of the member states of the OIC as well in pursuit of what Vladimir Putin has been talking about for years and years and years, to quote him, the new multipolar world order. And in a Chinese newspaper that was titled, I think this report was really aptly titled in the South China Post. The name of the article is "Why the Putin-Xi Bromance," you got that, bromance, "Why the Putin-Xi Bromance is a sign of things to come." It is. Oh boy. I don't know if they were trying to wax prophetic or not. I doubt it. But that's exactly right. The Putin-Xi bromance is a sign of things to come for Russia and China. And this Chinese, the South China paper said, quote, Xi Jinping's 3-day state visit to Russia earlier this month left a strong impression there was a high-level Chinese-Russian bromance going on. President Xi frequently referred to Vladimir Putin as an old and good friend and stressed the importance of Russia to Beijing's foreign policy. And given that the visit coincided with the escalation of the trade war between China and the U.S. and the ongoing tensions in America's relationship with Russia, it prompted some speculation about the emerging strategic alliance between the two countries to counter America. Well, geez, that's no news, Sherlock. I've talked a whole lot about the strategic alliance on past broadcasts, as I said a moment ago. My thinking is a little bit out of the box, folks, on these issues. And I've been sharing this for years now. I don't hide it. That's why I encourage you, if you're new to Open Up the Doors, go over to the YouTube page. But whereas many believe that Russia is part of the Magog alliance, I do not hold to that view. Rather, I believe that Russia is more aligned with the kings of the East. Just last year, China and Russia had a joint military exercise in eastern Russia, which was titled, this military exercise was titled East. And I covered that in the Kings of the East broadcast. So refer to that again. I keep plugging it in my YouTube library. If you never, by the way, if you've never subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do so. Again, I don't want to take up time reviewing that stuff, but I got to get us a little bit up to speed, because I do believe that again, my thinking's out of the box on this. I know I'm not too many people agree with me here, but if you listen to that, you'll see where I'm coming from. But that being neither here nor there, however, needless to be said, is that Putin's overarching goal is to create, again in his words, a multipolar world in which Russia is a leading entity. But here's the thing, and here's what's intriguing to me and why these kind of news stories attract my attention. Because the Russian economy has never been, and most likely will never be, strong enough to be the leader of that world order. America could be the leader of a unipolar, unipolar, as they've called it in the past, world order, or the new world order, which I'll get into in a moment into this broadcast. But Russia never had the economy. It's never had a strong economy. That's why we were able to bury them in the 80s under President Reagan. They've never been a world leader, at least not economically, which is one reason why Russia spends so much on its military prowess. Because, might makes right. Might makes right, as the totalitarians say. But Putin is shrewd, my friends, and realizing the economic realities, he is very intentional in creating this strong alliance with the economic powerhouse that China is. Now, I've said all that to say this, and that was actually out of the South China news. Oh, no, that was actually my commentary on it, honestly. But see, right on cue with my own reasoning, right on cue with my own analysis of the situation, these geo-political, geo-prophetical alignments that I like to say, the article in the South China Morning Post stated that, quote, 2 new trends have emerged recently. The first being a gradual coming together on what? Economic policy. Of course, because Russia needs the economic powerhouse that China is. Two new trends have emerged recently. The first being a gradual coming together on economic policy, and the second on an alignment of their positions on most global policy issues. A significant economic breakthrough occurred last year when trade between Russia and China reached a record high of $107 billion in U.S. money. The alignment on global affairs is made clear by the two documents that Putin and Xi signed just last week. They signed two documents. The first refers to, quote, a comprehensive strategic partnership of coordination for a new era. That's an agreement to work together in these economic and scientific endeavors. Again, their words, for a new era. There's a polar shift occurring. The second document they signed refers to reinforcing global strategic stability in new era and mostly focuses on international affairs, like Putin telling Trump not to react militarily to Iran just today, but helping to cement Russia and China's joint approach to pressing issues such as Iran, Venezuela, Korean Peninsula, and nuclear proliferation. It seems clear that Russia and China will continue to develop this relationship in the face of their increasing alienation from the U.S.-dominated global order. I'll say it again. There is a geopolitical polar shift occurring right now that is right in line. This is the important point, folks. This is not just about economic summits and alliances over there, because these geopolitical shifts are completely in line with biblical prophecy. And I'm talking about it because I want you to be both informed and aware of what's going on, because there's a lot of folks who are completely missing it. Back in 2016, Angela Merkel of Germany delivered through the ambassador to Russia from Germany. She delivered a letter to Vladimir Putin, and in this letter, she was extraordinarily strong, and she gave Putin a warning. Quote from Angela Merkel: "You are making a big mistake going rogue from the New World Order. Come into the fold before it's too late." Now, needless to say, Putin wasn't intimidated by Merkel, and he laughed her off because he's intent on building a new multipolar world order. And the SCO, the Shanghai Cooperative Organization, is well on its way to accomplishing its goals. Both Putin of Russia and Xi of China are seeing what everyone else is seeing, well, except for those who are in denial, that the Eurocentric New World Order is weakening and falling apart, and it's only a matter of time before there is a radical global realignment. It's already in the works. Folks, it's not the New World Order that we need to be looking at in a Eurocentric sort of way. It's the new multipolar world order that is in line with biblical prophecy. The West is declining and it's collapsing. And if anyone thinks that it's not, they are in denial or they're not paying attention, my friends. But stick around, because I've got a lot more on this. I'm going to take a break. I'll be right back. Here's Leland with a tune called Beginning and the End. And I am so happy that I am waiting on him who is the first and the last.
Out of darkness into light, the beginning and the end.
I place my life inside your hands, Jesus, the beginning and the end. Welcome back. Andy White here. You are listening to Open Up the Doors here on Faith FM. It's the fusion of heart, mind, and soul. And I am streaming live, if you're just joining in, on my Open Up the Doors Facebook page at facebook.com/faithfm 91.7. Joining the conversation over there. And I'll look through the stream every so often. And if you guys got anything that you'd like to share, as far as comments, please let me know, and I'll try and share them throughout the broadcast. But enjoy the conversation. I gotta before I get back into what I want to get into. I gotta show you folks on Facebook something here. Okay, you might be wondering, what does this shirt say? Because I know when I got the camera flipped around, until my video producer recalibrates the video, it's backwards. But this was my Father's Day present. For those of you on Facebook, I know those of you who are listening to the radio, you were saying, what is he talking about? But my shirt says, boy, do I hate being right all the time. My wife got me this shirt, and she said I had to wear it for my broadcast. But there's a problem with this shirt. There really is. I'll show it to you guys again. Boy, do I hate being right all the time. Except there is a problem with the shirt. I mean, I don't hate being right all the time. That's just something I had to get used to. Just something I had to get used to being, and just recognize the fact that I'm just right all the time. All right. So anyway, she got me the shirt, and I had to wear it. And I wanted to explain that because my video producer doesn't like when I wear T-shirts. She likes me to wear button-collared shirts for the videos. But hey, listen. The wife wanted me to wear my Father's Day present, and there it is. But you know, my wife, she knows she's got to deal with the fact that I'm very, 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 very seldomly ever wrong. But when I'm wrong, I admit it, and that I've shown that. I have shown that when I am wrong, I admit it. All right, just having a little fun here, folks, in the midst of a lot of serious stuff that is going on. Now my wife is texting me on Facebook, I think you should wear it every week. Well, I don't know if I will. It's actually, no, you know what? It's really warm in the studio, and believe it or not, this T-shirt's actually kind of heavy. It's kind of very warm. But anyway, I got to get back with the broadcast. There's a lot going on, and I went down this bunny trail. But at the top of the broadcast, I said there were two very important summit meetings, and I shared on the one in the first block. But here's the other one, and this was a really gripping article in the Jerusalem Post this week. I inadvertently did not post this on my Facebook page. I'm going to need to do that. But this article in the Jerusalem Post was really, really on target. And the title of the article was The Central Asia Summits, plural, that show Washington is losing grip. Let me say that again. The Central Asia Summits that show Washington is losing grip. Again, it's another report on these different summits that happened just this past week. The article is by this guy, Seth Franzman. But he begins the article by saying, if one wanted to see what a world without U.S. influence looks like, you could have been an observer at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in Bishkek on Friday. That would have been last Friday. And then gone to Tajikistan's capital, Dushanbe, the next day for the Conference on Interaction and Confidence-Building Measures in Asia, otherwise known as SICA. But what they're not saying in this article, but that I know just from my own analysis, is that all these other nations are part of the OIC, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. Together, these summits include more than 30 members and observer states, and provided a forum, now listen to this, provided a forum for the emerging alliance of Russia, China, Turkey, and Iran. Folks, when I read that line, it jumped off the page to me. For years and years and years, I've been telling you folks that the major alliances of the last days, when you read Daniel chapter 11, and this is where I get this from, this is what I'm basing it on, the king of the north, the Antichrist is a military leader who goes on military campaigns. And in Daniel 11, it talks about in the king of the north, and I believe the king of the north is the Magog Confederation. I believe the king of the north is Turkey and Iran. The Bible tells us that in Ezekiel 38, that the Magog Confederation, the Axis powers are Turkey and Iran, along with Libya and Sudan and Ethiopia and several others. But the main Axis powers of the King of the North is Turkey and Iran. The main Axis powers, in my opinion, on the kings of the East are Russia and China. This storyline in this newspaper, Jerusalem Post, I'll read it again. These summits included a forum for the emerging alliance of Russia and China. I placed them in with the kings of the East, and Turkey and Iran to discuss regional and global issues without Western powers present. This is important because all of these countries, for different reasons, have faced challenges from Washington in recent years. The countries are working to challenge the cross-border crime and build a multipolar world order. And the article goes on to say, Washington, take note. I've been telling folks to take note for a long time. The New World Order is not what we need to be worried about in Europe. It's falling apart. It's crumbling. And one of the reasons I believe that China and Russia are part of the kings of the East, again, go back and listen to that video, that broadcast I did a while back. But in Daniel 11, when the king of the north is invading the king of the south, which is Egypt, and he defeats the king of the south, it says in Daniel 11, it says that news from the east and from the north come to him, and he goes into a rage, and then he goes out to annihilate many. Look it up. It's in Daniel 11. Well, if he's the king of the north, why would news from the north alarm him? Because there's something north above the king of the north. It's called Russia and China, and they have a coalition. They've had a coalition now since 2001, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. And getting back to this article, which I digressed from, Washington, take note. The multipolar world order is aimed at contesting U.S. global leadership after decades where the U.S. was hegemonic global superpower. No more, perhaps, if the SCO meeting is any indicator. Besides China, Russia, India, and Pakistan, the neighboring countries of Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, they are all nations that are in the OIC. All those nations are member states of the OIC, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. This is a gelling together of the prophetic scenario. And while Russia and China sought to increase regional cooperation during these summits this past week, Iran was there. Iran used the SCO meeting to slam the U.S. Of course they would. Iranian President Hassan Rouhani told the summit that the U.S. has been violating all the international structures and rules and using its economic, financial, and military resources, has taken an aggressive approach as they shot down our drone just yesterday, or this morning, whenever it was. Of course, it was all bashing. This meeting last week was a bashing. Iran used it to bash America. Rouhani held a meeting with Putin on the side to discuss economic ties, and that there would be a joint Iran-Russia Commission for Cooperation taking place this week in Iran. Maybe that's why Putin told Trump not to respond with military force, because Putin is in Iran right now having this meeting. And I'm sure Vlad doesn't want to be around when the bombs start dropping. Just saying, folks, just saying. In the meeting last Saturday in Tajikistan, Chinese President Xi Jinping urged new efforts on security and development among the participating countries. Again, that's what this is all about. The meeting was important for Iran and Turkey. Erdogan, guess what? He was there. Of course Erdogan was there. Erdogan, who I believe is a type of the King of the North. I'm not saying he is. I don't know if he is or not. But Erdogan certainly has aspirations, as you have heard me share about in the past. But Erdogan met with Rouhani, and they used the meeting to condemn U.S. actions recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. And Iran used the meeting to warn that it cannot remain inside the JCPOA, that was the nuclear agreement that Obama signed, the Iran nuclear deal, if other countries violate it. Well, they weren't going to stick into it anyway. They're just using that as a scapegoat. So much is going on, my friends. So much. It's exciting. Let me cut to the chase. I can't obviously go through the entire report, the entire news article, but there's a lot of interesting things. And these two meetings over the weekend, last weekend, show the degree to which U.S. influence is being both challenged and weakened as China, Turkey, and Russia and Iran. There it is again. China, Turkey, Russia, and Iran. That's their report, not mine. I'm looking at this saying this is in alignment to everything that I've been speaking about for several years now. I've been speaking for over, I don't even know. It's got to be over 30 years. How I've been saying how, I don't know how it's going to come to pass. But America, people are always asking, where is America in the last day scenario? You don't see America in the Bible. There's reasons for that. There's a lot of reasons for that. One of the reasons is that the Bible isn't America-centric. It's Jerusalem-centric. It's Mideast-centric. Another reason is that in the last days, confederations, the king of the north, the kings of the east, with the surrounding nations that come against Israel to invade and destroy Israel, they're all Islamic Mideast nations. The Bible says that the Magog confederation, the kingdom of the beast, who is able to make war against the beast. That has told me for decades now that America wouldn't be around. America is a superpower. We've got 7 fleets. We've got all this stuff. But some may trust in horses and some may trust in chariots. But if we don't trust in the name of the Lord our God, my friends, it won't matter. Something is going to happen to America. And I'm digressing a little bit. But we're seeing it happen. We're seeing it happen in front of us. They're building this multipolar world order for the 21st century. And they are recognizing that Europe has become weakened. Europe has become overrun by Islam. The West is crumbling. And what is this multipolar world order going to look like? I've already hinted at it. The Magog Confederation, headed up by the King of the North, the OIC. The King of the North, in Daniel 11, is clearly the Antichrist. Almost every Bible expositor will agree with that. In Daniel, he is called the King of the North. In Ezekiel, he is called Gog. Gog is not a name. It's a title, like Pharaoh or king. Gog is the king of the land of Magog. He is the king of the north. Gog and the king of the north, they're the same person. They're the same entity. In Isaiah and in Micah, he is called the Assyrian. All of these descriptions of the Antichrist point to one and the same person that comes from a very specific geographical area. An area that includes the land of Magog, which was biblically Asia Minor, now modern-day Turkey, that ran through the ancient area of Assyria. That's why he's called the Assyrian. We know, according to Scripture, that is where the Antichrist is going to come from. Folks, stop looking to some American president to be the Antichrist. It drives me crazy when I hear people say that. The Bible is specific. It tells us how the scenario is going to play out. Who that person is, we don't know, but we know from where he comes. Through the area of the ancient Assyrian Empire, which would also include a large swath of modern eastern Turkey down through Syria into the modern-day Iraq, which was ancient Babylon. This Magog Confederation will be, I believe, the 7-headed, 10-horned crowned beast of Daniel 7 and Revelation 13. Ezekiel tells us almost who all those nations are. There's a couple it doesn't mention, so we can only assume. But Ezekiel talks to us about Meshech and Tubal. They were territories in Asia Minor. It talks about Gomer and Beth Togarmah, the same. Armenia, Georgia, part of the Magog Confederacy. That OIC, Organization of Islamic Cooperation, that Erdogan wants to be the head of, that Erdogan is the head of right now. The King of the North. What's the other multipolar confederation? The Shanghai Cooperation Organization. These things that I've been talking about for years now, folks, they're coming together. Pay attention. Pay attention. And right now, we're on the verge, maybe, don't know for sure, but it looks like we're on the verge of a major confrontation with Iran. It's time, folks. It is time to hold nothing back. It's always been that way. It's always been time to hold nothing back from serving God, holding nothing back from serving the Lord, looking for and hastening the coming of the day of the Lord. I'll be right back in a moment. Here is Jesus culture, holding nothing back. Stick around. I'll be right back. The fusion of heart, mind, and soul. This is Open Up the Doors with Andy White. And I'm here penetrating the unseen powers of darkness, sending powers and principalities into frothy fits of frenzy simply by speaking the light of truth here on Faith FM, WEGB 90.7, 93.3 in that peak, WEGQ 91.7 with Quag. And thanks for joining in, everybody, all across the fruited plain. And I am streaming live. If you're just joining us, I am streaming live on my Open Up the Doors Facebook page at facebook.com/faithfm 91.7. We are streaming live over the internet at hamptonschristian.com, where you can find the links for the free Faith FM apps. We have the app for the Android. We have the app for the Apple platforms. And best way to listen to Faith FM is to get those apps if you're outside of the Faith FM broadcast area. You can listen to Christian broadcasting, Christian programming 24/7. The apps are a great tool to have. One other thing, I've been plugging a couple of things during the course of this broadcast. A couple of other broadcasts that I did in the past, which you can find on my YouTube channel, which I'm going to plug right now. Please, if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, just look up Andy White or Open Up the Doors. Just Google it and subscribe to the channel. You'll see a little bell there. I think it's in the upper right-hand corner. That bell will give you a notification anytime we upload a new video. All of these Facebook videos that we do, our video producer takes the Facebook video and she converts it into high definition, and she syncs it up when it's out of sync, like I'm hearing it is out of sync right now. But we give you a high definition, or I should say she gives you a high definition, really great quality production of the broadcast. We have almost all the broadcasts, at least from the last several years, up there on the YouTube channel. Like I said, you could look up the Kings of the East, which relates to this broadcast. You could look up the broadcast on the OIC in Psalm 83 on the YouTube channel, and go on over there. And there's a lot of stuff there that you can peruse. There's a lot of different videos, of different topics, different issues I've talked through the years. Peruse it at your leisure and leave some comments there on any of the videos that you might happen to watch. I'd appreciate it so much. I would like to get that YouTube channel really with a lot more subscribers, because the other issue that with Facebook is they're clamping down. The numbers on Facebook for Christians, for conservatives, for our free speech, Facebook is clamping down. There's been a drop in the people reach on my Open Up the Doors page that has been very, very frustrating, if not angering, to me in the last couple of weeks. When we have these pages, I have this page, there are things that they have behind the scenes that you can't see. There's analytics. You can go back into the page and look at the analytics. You can see what posts are reaching what people, how many people. And I want to tell you something, folks. 2 months ago, we were soaring. I mean, it's hard to believe, but we were soaring. We were reaching on average 2 months ago a week between 20,000 and 30,000 people, which I realize there are other ministries out there that reach millions of people. But for me, local guy on the east end of Long Island, I was really happy about that. The idea that this broadcast and all of the information and all of the stuff that we post on the Open Up the Doors Facebook page was actually reaching 30,000 people a week, 25,000 one week, 20,000, and that was going on for about a month. And then all of a sudden, about 6 weeks ago, it was like they turned the water faucet off. It was right around the time, as a matter of fact, where they had blocked me from posting in other groups, all these prophetic groups that I'm in. They blocked me for several days. And right after that blocking, even after they reinstated me, after they lifted the block, the reach has been dismal. And, you know, sometimes you think it's just you. Well, it's funny because I was watching a news report last week. I forgot what show it was on, but it was a conservative guy who, again, he was doing the same thing I was doing. He was looking at his analytics. This guy he's a political pundit, and he was reaching hundreds of thousands of people. And all of a sudden, he went from reaching 500,000, 600,000 people to reaching 80,000 people. It was an incredible, incredible drop. And my wife was in the living room there with me, watching this on the news. And I said, "See, it's not just me. It's not just my imagination. Facebook is actually doing this." And this is why I ask you guys all the time, please share as much as you can, because Facebook is clamping down on opinions that it doesn't like, on the speech it doesn't like. And that's also why I'm asking people to sign up and subscribe to YouTube in case in case they block me altogether. I've got 2 strikes against me on Facebook. My understanding is if I get a third strike, they'll take the page down. And I'm not going to stop doing what I'm doing. That's the bottom line. I'll just have to find other avenues of doing it. Which reminds me, I have joined another social media page. It's called, what is that page called? It's called USA.life. And it's set up just like Facebook. It doesn't get a lot of traffic. It seems to be pretty new, but it's really easy to navigate because they really just copied Facebook. But it's conservatives, it's Christians, and I'm sure there's liberals there too. But they're not censoring people there. So if you want to join up on USA.life, look me up there. I see somebody commenting on my Facebook stream right now, Joni Lupus, who's the president of March for Life New York, and she just commented, Facebook is messing with March for Life New York, and it won't let them share. I know the other night when they were doing their radio broadcast, they were having problems. Facebook wouldn't let them share the broadcast. So we have got to look for other avenues to operate in, and it's really a sad commentary. But it's also one of the things I've talked about through the years, about how fascism is coming to America. I did a series on fascism about 4 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. I think it was 3.5, 4 years ago. And I remember the time people were like, kind of, I wouldn't say, they weren't lampooning me. But they were questioning where I was coming from. Like, they didn't believe what I was saying. I was saying, we are in a place of cultural fascism right now. Most people agreed with that. But cultural fascism will ultimately lead to a real governmental, political fascism. And we're getting there, my friends. These tech companies are fascist. They're liberal. They're looking for their globalization. And that is coming. I think it's going to take a different shape and a different form than many of us have been led to believe. And that gets me into, let me get back on track with my broadcast here, because for decades now, and that was kind of a good accidental way of really kind of segueing into this. But for decades now, we've been hearing the rhetoric of the New World Order, those of us who are Christians, and not just Christians. I mean, it was George H.W. Bush back in the, when was he president? Back in the late 70s, or no, actually, late 80s. George Herbert Walker Bush was talking about the New World Order. We've been hearing about the New World Order for decades now. In their minds, it was America, Europe, the global, the globalization with a Eurocentric, America-centric idea. And much of our Christian eschatology for the last 40 years or so has been inculcated with the idea of this Eurocentric New World Order. And I want to tell you, I once held to those beliefs myself before 9/11. But after 9/11, Hear me out, folks. After 9/11, as I began to investigate more into exactly what Islam was all about, other than just being an innocuous religion, I discovered that it wasn't an innocuous religion at all. And as I began to look more and more into Islam and into research the Islamic system, I then began to see how it actually plays into the eschatological schema of the Bible. My old ideas regarding a Eurocentric New World Order and my eschatological understanding began to change over the last 20 years. And for me, I have pretty much completely abandoned the Eurocentric eschatological paradigm, and I really abandoned it like 10 years ago. Once I fully realized that the Bible is not a Eurocentric book, it is a Mid-Eastern-centric book. It more precisely, it's a Jerusalem-centric book. And as I said, that after reevaluating my former end times understanding, I began to really go through a journey and a shifting right after 9/11. It's been an 18-year process, but that process has brought much more clarity to me than I previously held under the old Eurocentric paradigm, in large measure because the Mideast paradigm comports to the scriptures much more naturally, closely, and consistently. And it's become blatantly obvious to me personally that the so-called New World Order, inasmuch as we are discussing eschatology, it's not a European entity, but rather it will be a Mid-Eastern entity, an Islamic caliphate that seeks global domination. The Mid-Eastern Islamic caliphate fits every parameter of the biblical eschaton. And quite honestly, I find it I actually do find it somewhat puzzling and perplexing that so many still don't see it and still cling to an old and mistaken Eurocentric model. And that's why these stories that I'm reading to you from the Chinese publication, from the Jerusalem Post, about these summits that are going on over there in Central Asia about a multipolar world order, that's why they're so important. Because lo and behold, folks, right on cue, they're calling for this multipolar world order. And this multipolar world order is both Mid-Eastern, as I said, it's Central Asiatic, and it fits perfectly within the structure of Daniel 11. As I've shared in the last block, the King of the North Confederacy and Revelation's Kings of the East Confederacy. I posted a video, I'm running out of time, but I posted a video on Open Up the Doors of this imam preaching inside the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem. And this Palestinian imam, this sheikh, says that the army of Islam will set up a global caliphate headquarters in Jerusalem and go from there to conquer the world. Well, that's exactly what the Antichrist wants to do. He says this is where the banners of the caliphate will flutter. This guy is right, but he's right for all the wrong reasons. He says this is where the military convoys will gather. Yes, they will. They will all be gathered against Jerusalem. But they lose. He doesn't get that part of it. He says this is where the brigade will assemble under their banners. From here, armies will set out to conquer the world. The mighty army of Islam with all of its brigades. And it's it's not a very lengthy video, but he goes through, one brigade is going to do this. One brigade is going to do that. A third brigade is going to do this. And he goes through 10 brigades. And again, that caught my attention because he goes through 10 brigades and then he stops. Yep. The 10 horns of the beast caliphate, the Magog confederacy. Folks, all things that were written will be fulfilled. Go back and read Jeremiah chapter 30, verses 4 through 9. About the time of Jacob's trouble and how he will be delivered out of it, and the thing and the things that are going to go on regarding Jerusalem and Israel. But ultimately, even the multipolar world order will be at each other's throats. That's what Daniel 11 shows us. The Islamic Caliphate wants total global submission to it. The kings of the East, headed up by China and Russia, they don't want any part of an Islamic Caliphate. They want, an empirical empire. They want an imperial empire. They want an economic empire. They're not interested in Islam. But the Magog Caliphate is theocratic. The kings of the East are autocratic. The alliances won't last. And that's what we read in Daniel. I'm running out of time, but let me run through this. That he, the king of the north, shall act against the strongest fortresses. I'm reading out of Daniel 11, 39 through 44. He, the king of the north, shall act against the strongest fortresses with a foreign god, which he shall acknowledge and advance its glory. Well, that's exactly what the Islamic Caliphate exists. It exists for one reason, to advance the religion and the glory of Allah. And the king of the north, he shall cause them to rule over many and divide the land for gain. I am so much running out of time. But, some object to an Islamic Antichrist insisting that a Muslim would never claim to be God. However, Shia Islam believes the Mahdi to be of divine origin. It's not hard to imagine that a megalomaniacal caliph bent on world domination would proclaim himself to be God from the Temple Mount. And I believe that's exactly what will happen. But I'm running out of time. I'm down to like the last minute. But in Daniel 11, it talks about how that this king of the north will have the Libyans and the Ethiopians following in his heels. Again, those are two of the nations we see in the Magog Confederacy of Ezekiel 38. But news from the east and the north, China and Russia, shall trouble him. Therefore he shall go out with great fury to destroy and annihilate many. Yes, folks, we are living in exciting and prophetic times. And there's developing this new multipolar world order. But in the end, they themselves will be to each other's throats. And in the end, Jesus is going to gather all of these nations. The Lord is going to gather all of these nations, as you know, into the valley of Megiddo, where he will enter into judgment with them. Folks, we're getting there. We're in prophetic times. Preach the gospel. Be ready, in season and out of season, folks. I'm out of time, but thanks for tuning in and joining me for a brand new edition of Open Up the Door. Stick around. There's more to come on Faith FM.